Welcome back to another race day vlog. I feel like I have been just all systems go for like 2-3 weeks straight and it still has not showed any signs of slowing down. We are headed up to Belterra today to go watch Peach run a mile over the dirt course, and in all honesty I feel pretty optimistic about this race. I feel like she's due for something interesting, you know, like it's just kind of that vibe. She likes Belterra. We know she likes Belterra. It's at a distance that she enjoys. It's kind of a smaller field of only 7 horses. It's just, you know, it's like a lot of good things. The one not good thing is, so TVG, for those, or FanDuel, whatever the heck they call it now. For those of you who don't know, there is a betting app. And that is, you can watch the races on there, bet from there, all that fun stuff, right? And I went first thing this morning to look at it, because what I do, because obviously where I work night shift, I go through my list, see what horses we have running for the day, go ahead and put my bets in, and then go to sleep. So in case I miss something, it's already covered. And so I went through this morning to do that. And there's only 7 horses in the field. She's the second longest shot of the board, and I guess TVG is in the same thought process of me, of like, hey, she's due for something interesting, because they listed us as the first pick. They give you their top 3 picks at the bottom, and they're like, first pick of who they think is gonna win second, third. And every freaking time TVG lists us as the first pick, we lose. I'm like, stop doing that to me. So I was super optimistic. I was like, yeah, I feel good going into this race. And then TVG does that crap to me, and I'm like, how dare you? How rude. Anyway, so is she the 6th? I forgot what number she is. But I kind of did a quick glance of the field without going too in depth. The one horse is the favorite. Makes sense. She's coming off of she's stepping down in class, so she ran at Kingland for a decent price tag, and now she's essentially dropping into an easier field, hence why she's the favorite. There is also a filly coming from Gulfstream who just broke her maiden, so that's another thing that's kind of interesting. And then there's another filly in there who didn't necessarily run great, but it is her first start for the barn, so it is interesting that, hey, she's changed barns since the last time she's ran. Maybe something new is going to happen. So those 3, in my opinion, are kind of the horses of like, hey, of interest. But I felt pretty optimistic when I saw we were back at Belterra. You know. So anyway, I guess I'm going to go take a nap, because obviously I've been working and I haven't slept yet, and there's been no children tonight. I thought for sure I was going to have a baby tonight. And honestly, I kind of wish she would just go, but like, she's been quiet, and I don't know, goodness. But yeah, I feel fairly optimistic today, so hopefully TVG didn't jinx me with this first pick deal.
And they're off, an even beginning. Jetting now for the lead, that is Red Jag. Red Jag shows good speed. Holding right against the rail is Vogelsang as the fillies make the way into the first turn. Red Jag shows the way. Vogelsang sets up shop along the inside to the outside. Almost 3 across is Battling Bubbles. A length and a half back. Along the inside in a Peach, being passed on the outside by Rose Darling as they make their way up the banks of the mighty Ohio. And with the lead, that's Red Jag. Alba Jimenez looking for that second win of the day. Smack dab on the outside, that is Battling Bubbles. About 3 lengths back in Vogelsang, right along the inside, being passed by Rose Darling in the green jacket. Another 3 to the trailer is in a peach. Opening quarter 24-2 as they run down the banks of the mighty Ohio. A half in 47-3, and they picked it up a tick. Battling Bubbles and McKee just went right to the front. Quickly opens up a length and a half. Red Jag lays in second to the outside. Rose Darling starting to come over the top, and Rose Darling moving into the 2-path. Down against the rail, Vogelsang about 5 lengths out, but still coming on just the same as they reach the quarter pole and set down for the stretch drive. It's Battling Bubbles, and John McKee, giving a vigorous hand ride, owns it now by a solid 2 lengths. On the far outside, Rose Darling. Dropping over to the rail is Red Jag, but they got to catch Battling Bubbles. And Battling Bubbles and John McKee just kick clear and wave goodbye to this field. 16th polarized. It's all Battling Bubbles, and she is all alone. Running second is Vogelsang over in a peach.
All right, let's break it down. She is the 5. You can tell that the jockey really had to hustle her to kind of get out of the gate. If you watched any of her old stuff, you know that she tends to like to stick out toward the back, and we've been trying to teach her to stay a little bit closer to the pace so that she doesn't get so far behind and it's a little bit easier for her to close. Right here, she's sitting mid-pack, and she's kind of just doing what she does, vibing. The jockey said that he did have to kind of stay on top of her to kind of keep her moving. Like, she just kind of wanted to back out of this spot quite a bit. She had kind of been fairly nervous and just anxious earlier on, which is very abnormal for her. And she really wanted nothing to do with the other horses. So here she is. She's dropped back a little bit. The other horse that was riding next to her has moved up. And she is hanging out back there. She's got such a nice, big, long, pretty stride. This mare is going to make a really wonderful eventer once she retires from the track. Anyway, we're not going to see her for a little bit because she's just going to vibe out back. And so what you're going to miss is she actually drops back even farther. She really just was not about it today. She didn't really want to be involved. So at this stage, they're coming around the turn, and there is a lot of ground to make up. You still don't really see her. Now you can kind of see her head poking through. She's still pretty far back. He's trying to get her a little more serious and a little more involved at this point to see if she's going to attempt to do any kind of closing kick. Absolutely no one's catching the front horse at this point. That horse absolutely romped with this victory. She's currently still vibing in the very back. Just, vibing. She kind of got a little dirt kicked in her face here. They kind of move her to the outside, and that kind of does the trick because all of a sudden she finally starts closing very well, and she just misses out for second. Oh, let me tell you, the freaking traffic getting back was horrible. Like, I was in standstill traffic for 20 minutes and then bumper to bumper traffic for like another 20 minutes. I'm a very firm believer, if there's no like wreck, if there's no like construction, broken down vehicle on the side of the road, debris, and if there's just no reason other than there's cars in the area for there to be a traffic jam, I'm very firm believer that it's just one or two idiots up front who should not be driving who are just causing the backup, causing the problem. There was so much freaking traffic on the way back, and it wasn't even like 5, like it was like 3 o'clock. I was like, this is so stupid. Anyway, I feel like this sounds bad the way I say it. Hopefully, though, I explain it so that it makes sense. Overall, the performance was a little disappointing. And I know you're like, she finished third, almost second. The placement wasn't disappointing. It was just the performance. So I feel, for those of you who followed us along for long enough at this point, I feel like you kind of have an idea of how she is. She's a pretty even keel filly. Go with the flow. Not really, like, she doesn't really get anxious or stupid. She might get a little nervous, but like it's a nervous in the fact like she gets a little warm in the paddock before she goes out on the track, and then she settles down. Overall, you can have like a kid handle her in the barn. Very easy to handle. I was one of the first people who ever sat on her back. So she's not like what she did was not normal. So I had noticed when she was in the paddock when they were putting the saddle on, which you all didn't get to see because she was in the stall area. She was very just not her. She was fidgety. She was kind of like trying to fight them a little bit, like she didn't want to be touched. And then actually the trainer was like, we're gonna have to put the jockey on out here in the walk ring because she's just not comfortable in those stalls right now. She doesn't want to, like, she doesn't like being in there, And so they put her on outside. And then he told me, he goes, either one or two things are going to happen. Either she's going to break like a bat out of hell and not look back and she's going to run amazingly, or this is going to be a very shit run. Like, she ain't going to show up. It's going to be awful. We don't really know per se what got to her. But like, since she arrived in the barn area, she was just very anxious, very nervous. She never really settled down. So maybe something in the barn kind of spooked her and she just never settled. Maybe it was just something in the air. Maybe it was just her. Like, obviously, they're not machines. Like, they can have an off day. We just couldn't really figure out what was the reason that she just felt so uncomfortable, right? That she was just so anxious. So, and it definitely affected the way that the race went, because the jockey said, he goes, I really had to stay on her the whole time. And she still was like, she would get close to the horses and she would like kind of shy away. She's like, I don't want to be near them. I don't want to be near them at all. And then that being said, like, obviously she was very willing to go. She closed very well. It did help that the horses ahead of her went a decent enough click where they kind of tired themselves out for her to catch up and gain a lot of ground. But yeah, she definitely, and like, I feel like if you look in the clips a little bit, you can kind of see her. It's mainly with her head where she's just like shaking it. She doesn't want to, she's just kind of picking, she's just not her. So that being said, with all that in mind, if she wasn't doing that, if she was her normal self and she had still finished second or third and was like, it was a good try, then that would have been a little bit of a different story. We would have been like, oh yeah, she did great. But where she was just a little uncomfortable, goodness, it kind of just leaves us scratching our head onto why. So obviously, for those of you who don't know, they do a vet check when they get there. So as soon as they go for the race days, before they race, the vet goes through and looks at all the horses that are racing that day. And if the vet feels like, hey, don't like the way this horse looks, it's not going to run, they can scratch him. And the vets are on the horses the entire time. So from the moment, goodness, we are doing snorting karaoke. So from when they're in the paddock, when they're out on the track, at any point, a vet can look at a horse and be like, nope, you're not running today. You don't like, there's something physically that's a little bit questionable. So for her, it wasn't necessarily a physical thing so much as a mental thing. She got back to the barn. She's sound. She's clean-legged, cold-legged. Nothing seems to be amiss body-wise, right? But he did tell me, he goes, we're going to pull blood on her and see maybe it's her hormones. Maybe there's like a little bit of an infection starting to kick in. Maybe she's just... maybe there's something internally going on. Maybe it's ulcers. She is already on ulcer stuff. But it's definitely a possibility. Maybe there's some ulcer stuff going on. So that was kind of the thought process, was kind of go, okay, let's back off, see if there's any reason that, like, maybe let's see if there was a physical reason to like warrant her being so anxious and so nervous. If not, and she's perfectly happy and healthy, then maybe it was just something in the barn. Maybe it just wasn't her day. It's Ohio, right next to the river. Maybe she just got down there. She goes, this is muggy. I don't want to be here. I don't know. So it was just definitely a little bit abnormal for her, which was a little bit disappointing. Because she had been doing so well coming in. And honestly, I was looking at her physically. Goodness. And I had even thought she put on a little weight. She's not necessarily the world's easiest keeper. She can be a little bit lean and light. And I was looking at her weight-wise. I was like, she actually looks really good right now. She's just a little bit of an anxious bean. And there wasn't really... like, unfortunately, you can ask them. They can't really always tell you. Anyway, so obviously she's back at the barn. She's happy, safe, not claimed. They're gonna do some blood work and see if maybe something is cooking that we just are not aware of, or do some more investigating if that comes back boring. But yeah, hopefully, if everything is good, which it should be, then I expect her to run in about 4 to 6 weeks, probably back at Belterra. Maybe she just needed a wiggle race to settle down. I don't know. Her sister, Mikasa, should also be running again in about 2 to 3 weeks. give or take. So we'll see her back soon. And then I don't really know per se. I have a 2-year-old who I own in a partnership. I've introduced you all before, like way back when, but I haven't got the chance to introduce you all to her since she's been back in Kentucky. I own her in a partnership, and so the whole deal with them is I told them, I was like, y'all do whatever you want to do, whatever trainer, I'm just here for the ride. So this is a trainer that I'm not familiar with, so I don't really know like what their style is. She started doing baby stuff down in Florida, and now she's back in Kentucky, and she's starting to work a little bit, to be a little more serious. That being said, in my mental image of like my little checkmark boxes, I would think they probably work her maybe 2 to 3 more times before running her. So that would put her at about 2 to 3, 4, no, that would be about 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah, about 3 to 4 weeks before her first start. She could definitely be farther along than that. I don't really know, but I haven't heard anything, to be honest. But so yeah, so hopefully she'll be starting to get some miles on her soon, and we will be seeing her enter as well. It'll be nice to have 3 horses running all at the same time. I typically only have like 1 or 2. So this will definitely be the most horses I've had running all together at one time. And all of them are fillies, which I feel like is very fitting. Anyway, so that's all I got. Overall, like, I'm glad, like, she's fine, she's happy, she's healthy, she's safe. She did place really well. It's just kind of, all of us are kind of just scratching our head a little bit, wondering why she didn't really settle down. Like, she just wasn't her. You know, it's kind of like the equivalent of taking your horse to a horse show. And it's a bit like it's a horse that has show miles and stuff like that. And maybe for whatever reason, it just doesn't like that specific ring. And he just is like, I don't like this ring today. Or they just don't, or like there's something in the air that they're just like, not today. It's kind of the same thing. Hopefully, that's all it was. It's just a one-time thing. And, you know, that's all I got, really. Anyway, until next time, I guess.